AITA for leaving without a word after she smiled and confessed to cheating? My name is Harlan Whitaker. I am 59 years old. All my life, I have worked with stone, the Indiana limestone that gives so many historic buildings here that warm color tourists photograph from their cars without getting out. I started at 17 as an assistant to my Uncle Norman in a workshop in the University District, carrying blocks that weighed more than I did, breathing in dust that settled even into my dreams. By 32, I had my own workshop. By 40, I had 3 properties that I rented out to Indiana University students. By 48, I had a property management business that ran itself, like a wall clock you no longer need to wind. Natalie Whitaker came into my life when I was 27 and she was 23. She was an accountant. She worked at a large office supply store on Kirkwood Avenue, the one with those tall columns that look like a courthouse. She did my workshop's first tax return and charged me $300. I paid her $500 because I did not know how to say no to a woman who smelled like fresh paper and smiled as if the world owed her something and she had already collected it. We got married in 1989 at the downtown Catholic church. We had 2 kids, Derek, who now lives in Chicago and designs software for a tech company, and Jillian, who teaches history at a high school in a small town nearby, and has a 4-year-old daughter who calls me Grandpa Harlan instead of Grandpa. They both turned out great, better than us, honestly. Natalie was always smart. Not smart like people who get good grades, but smart like people who look at a room and in 3 seconds already know who holds the power, who wants it, and who is going to lose. That made her extraordinary in business. For 15 years, she handled the accounting for everything I built, every dollar documented, every receipt in its binder, every tax return filed on time. I provided the hands. She provided the operational brain. We were a good team. The problem with teams is that sometimes one of the two starts to believe they are carrying more weight and stops communicating it. And that silence rots inside like forgotten fruit at the back of the fridge. 5 years ago, Natalie stopped managing my accounts. She said she wanted to do something of her own. I understood her, or thought I did. She got a job working with a guy named Vincent Parker, the administrator of a chain of dental clinics in the East Side suburbs. She started as an external accountant. In 6 months, she was the operations manager. In a year, she practically lived in that office. Vincent Parker was 44 years old, recently separated, his hair slicked back like a dealership car salesman, and he drove a black Ford F-150 pickup truck that he always double-parked. The kind of man who calls you brother before knowing your name and smells like expensive cologne on a Friday at 10 at night. I met him at a year-end dinner Natalie organized for her team. He shook my hand too hard and looked at me with that mix of pity and superiority men have when they think they have discovered something you have not. I did not give it much thought. That was my first mistake. The second was not giving it thought for 4 straight years. The signs were there. Sure, there were always the late nights. She would arrive late, but she smelled like new soap, not hers, a different one, sweeter, like a hotel soap. The messages she answered while walking to the kitchen, always with her back to me. The laugh that changed. Before, she laughed with me loudly, with her eyes closed. Then she started laughing on the phone with a softer, more contained laugh, as if she were acting for someone who needed to believe she was charming. And she stopped asking me things, not the big things, the small ones, how my day went, what I ate, if my back hurt, those questions that mean nothing and mean everything. But in your 50s, you are in no rush. You observe, catalog, file away, and wait until you are sure, because at that age you already know that accusations without proof are dynamite that blows up in your face first. The certainty came to me on a Tuesday in November, almost 2 years ago. I was eating dinner alone, meatloaf with mashed potatoes and gravy, the ones I bought at Doris Henderson's diner near the farmer's market. Natalie had been ignoring my calls since 9 in the morning. I sent her 4 messages. The first one normal, everything okay. The second a bit worried. Natalie, answer. The third already irritated. I did not send the 4th. I wrote it, read it 3 times, and deleted it. Because in that moment, with my meatloaf half eaten and my phone silenced on the wooden table I sanded and varnished myself in 2016, I understood with absolute clarity that my wife was not ignoring me by accident. She was ignoring me because I did not exist in the place where she was. She arrived at 11:15. I was still in the kitchen. The meatloaf was cold by then, but I was finishing it because my father taught me that food is not wasted, not even when the world is cracking beneath your feet. I heard the door, the heels in the hallway, and before she appeared, I knew. Not through mystical intuition or anything like that. I knew because I smelled the same hotel soap before I saw her, and because when she appeared in the kitchen doorway, she had that smile, the smile of someone who just did something they know will destroy something, and they could not care less. "Harlan," she said to me. She did not ask anything. She did not apologize for the calls. She leaned against the doorframe as if she were the main character in a 9 o'clock drama and said, "I just came from being with Vincent, and to be honest with you, I would do it again." The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a dog barked twice and went quiet. The wall clock, the one my Uncle Norman gave me when I opened the workshop, read 10:47. I looked at the meatloaf. It still had a piece with gravy on it. "Your dinner is going to get cold," I told her. "There is meatloaf in the oven." She expected shouting. She expected me to get up, throw the plate, grab her by the arm, and demand explanations. She expected 32 years of marriage turned into a scene. What she got was a 59-year-old stonemason chewing slowly and looking at her like someone watching the rain through a window, attentively, without urgency, knowing there is nothing he can do to stop it. "Is that it?" she said, and her voice sharpened. "I just told you I had been involved with another man, and you offer me meatloaf. It is from Doris Henderson's. It is good." She made a sound somewhere between a laugh and contempt. She went up the stairs. I heard the bathroom door close, the shower water running. Then, silence. Do you know what Natalie was expecting? She was expecting me to go up after her, to yell at her through the door, to say things she could later use to paint me as the unstable man who lost control when she was honest with him. I know that script because my father lived it. In 1987, my mother confessed to him that she had been seeing a car salesman from Indianapolis for months. My father, Theodore Whitaker, a carpenter by trade, stubborn by calling, did exactly what Natalie wanted me to do. He raised his voice, he got emotional, he damaged a bathroom mirror with his fist, and my mother used every single one of those acts as evidence in the divorce. The judge gave her the house, the alimony, and custody. My father was left with his truck and a bag with 3 changes of clothes. I was 16 years old. I saw him pick up that bag from the courthouse floor with bandaged hands, and the only thing he said to me in the parking lot, with a midday sun hitting his face like a slap, was this: "Harlan, when it is over, make sure it was you who decided when." I never forgot those words. I carried them for 30-something years like a tool you do not use every day, but you know exactly where it is. I finished the meatloaf, washed my plate, and dried it with the checkered rag hanging from the hook next to the stove, a rag Natalie bought at a flea market in a nearby town years ago, whose colors were already faded, but which still absorbed water well. Some things are like that, things that keep working even though their color is gone. I went out to the backyard, where I have an Indiana limestone bench I carved myself 12 years ago, a piece that weighs about 330 pounds and is not going to move from there even with an earthquake. I sat down, looked at the Bloomington sky, which in November has that dark purple color that looks like spilled ink. It smelled of wet dirt because it had rained earlier. One of those unseasonable Indiana rains that are not in the forecast, but that the stone always announces beforehand. Limestone changes shade hours before the water falls. I gave myself exactly 5 minutes to feel everything I was not going to feel in front of her. Rage, humiliation, something that felt a lot like grief. All together, compressed, like stone before it is carved. 5 minutes. After that, pure logistics. What Natalie did not know, what I made sure with careful precision that she did not know, was that 13 months before that night, I had sat in the office of a lawyer named Eleanor Patterson, in a discreet building on Kirkwood Avenue. And we had begun to dismantle my life piece by piece to put it back together without her in it. It all started with my close friend Russell. Russell Quinn, retired construction worker, 71 years old, hands like bricks and an honesty that sometimes hurts. We met in the 1980s working on the restoration of the historic downtown buildings. We sweated through enough Indiana summers together to tell each other things without sugarcoating them. We met one Sunday at his house in the industrial area, drinking strong coffee with brown sugar that his wife Cheryl prepared in a pot. I told him what I suspected. "Do you think she is seeing someone else?" Russell said, blowing on his coffee without flinching. I think she has been somewhere else for a while. I do not know if it is with a person or with a life, but she is not here anymore. And what are you going to do? I looked at Russell's patio. He had an apple tree that yielded tiny, tart apples, the kind that are not even good for pies, but he took care of it as if they were made of gold. There are people who take care of what they have, and people who do not. I am going to make sure, and when I am sure, I am going to walk away clean. Russell put his cup on the ground. Harlan, how long have you been thinking about this? Long enough to not be angry. He did not understand at the time. He understood later. The lawyer, Eleanor Patterson, was 52 years old. She had a gaze that could cut glass and the patience of someone who has seen every possible form of marital failure parade across her desk. I brought her the business papers, the property deeds, 20 years of bank statements. She reviewed them for a week and asked to see me on a Monday at 8 in the morning. How smart is your wife? Was the first thing she asked. Smarter than me. Then, we have to be more careful than smart. And we were. For 13 months, Eleanor and I reorganized everything. The property management business, Whitaker Property Management, which managed 26 apartments and 3 commercial spaces in student areas, was restructured under a new legal entity. The original entity, where Natalie was listed as a partner since 2005, remained intact, but empty, like a walnut without the meat inside. The active contracts, the clients, the real income streams, everything migrated to a new limited liability company that Eleanor assembled with the precision of a watchmaker. Natalie kept signing the tax returns for the original entity every quarter. She signed over numbers I put in front of her, which she briefly skimmed, like someone reading newspaper headlines without opening the article. She trusted that I was still the same predictable Harlan as always, the stonemason who measures twice before cutting. She was right about the measuring. She was wrong about what I was measuring. The bank accounts were another matter. We had a joint Chase account where the household income, the rents, the management fees, and my retired stonemason pension went. Natalie used that account for everything. Groceries at Kroger, her salon appointments in the suburbs, her truck payment, gas, lunches with her friends at downtown restaurants I never set foot in. For 4 months, I moved money in amounts that would not trigger any alarms. Small, spaced-out transfers, all with documented justification, payments to suppliers, maintenance advances, reserve funds for property repairs. Each one real, each one traceable, each one legal. The Friday before the night of the meatloaf, the joint account had a balance of $6.43. The $6 were on purpose. In Bloomington, with $6 you can buy a piece of gum at the corner convenience store. It was my way of saying something without saying it. I also hired a private investigator. His name was Patrick Ledbetter, a 63-year-old former police officer who operated out of a tiny room above a dry cleaner on a downtown street. Russell recommended him to me. He had done some work for a nephew of his years ago, a background check on a deadbeat tenant. Patrick was discreet like a confessional and efficient like a shotgun. What Patrick found in 3 months of work not only confirmed the Vincent situation, it amplified it. The relationship had not been going on for 2 years, as I suspected. It had been going on for 4.5 years, since before Natalie stopped managing my accounts. And there was something else. Financial irregularities. Payments to a phantom supplier named VPS Dental Consulting, which appeared in the accounting of the original Whitaker Property Management entity. Invoices for services no one had ever received. Small amounts, $5,000 here, $8,000 there, which over 4 years added up to a little over $45,000. Natalie was taking from the business, not with the urgency of someone desperate, but with the calmness of someone who knows no one is watching. Each fake invoice was an act of inverted trust in my distraction, in my routine, in the certainty that the stonemason would never lift his eyes from the stone. And for 4 years, she was right. On the night of the meatloaf, after my 5 minutes on the limestone bench, I entered the house quietly. I went up to the hallway closet and took out 3 suitcases that had been packed for 4 days. My clothes, my documents, all the originals, every certificate, every deed, every policy, and wrapped in a wool blanket, the framed photograph of my mother, Ruth Whitaker, taken in 1971 by a traveling photographer in the town square. Wearing a blue shawl and the look of a woman who knew exactly what she was worth. That photo was the only truly irreplaceable thing in that house. It was coming with me. I loaded the suitcases into the pickup truck in 3 trips. Natalie was sleeping upstairs, or pretending to. I did not care which. At 1:15 in the morning, I pulled out of the garage, turned down Oakwood Drive, and headed toward the south exit of Bloomington. I did not leave a note. I did not send a message. She had given me everything I needed at the kitchen door with that winner's smile that still worked for her at 10:47, but which at 7:30 the next morning was going to be worth exactly the same as the $6 in the Chase account. I drove 25 minutes to Bedford. I checked into a motel on the highway, one of those with thin walls and a small landscape print glued at the reception. Room 17. I paid for a week in cash. I sat on the bed that smelled of bleach and institutional loneliness and stared at the ceiling until dawn. At 7:15 my phone vibrated. Russell, did you leave? Yes, I am parked 2 blocks from your house. Cheryl made me a thermos of coffee. Do you want me to report? Please. Russell was my lookout, my silent witness, 71 years old, and he got up at 5:30 in the morning without anyone asking him to. He parked 2 blocks from my house with a thermos of coffee and waited. He communicated mostly with short messages and a coffee cup emoji that meant nothing to report. At 7:31 he sent, the bedroom light turned on. At 7:44, she opened the front door, looked both ways. She went back in. At 7:52, she is talking on the phone. She looks agitated. I want to pause here to tell you something that happened later that same day, which says a lot about Natalie. At 11 in the morning, while I was at the Bedford Motel eating eggs with potatoes that tasted like nothing, my neighbor from Oakwood Drive, Pearl Thompson, a 78-year-old widow who lives alone and whose patio wall I repaired every time it cracked, sent me a message. Harlan, are you okay? Your wife came knocking on my door a little while ago. She told me you left the house in the middle of the night without saying anything, that she is very worried. She asked if I knew anything. I told her no, and then added. It seemed strange to me because she did not look worried. She looked angry. Pearl Thompson had the clarity of women who have lived alone for a long time and no longer need to believe anyone. Natalie was doing what she did best, controlling the narrative. Before I could tell my version, she was already planting hers. The unstable husband who left in the night, the worried wife knocking on doors. The story that is told first is the one that sticks, but I was in no rush. Stories have continuations. The call came at 8:09. I let it ring 5 times. Not for dramatic effect. I was spreading butter on a biscuit I bought at the bakery across from the motel, and I was not going to leave a piece of bread half finished. Harlan. Her voice was her business meeting voice, her damage control voice. Where are you? Good morning, Natalie. Your things are not here. What is going on? Check the Chase account. Call me back later. I hung up. I went back to the biscuit. She did not call back in 10 minutes, nor in 15. I knew what she was doing, sitting at the kitchen counter with her laptop open, logging into online banking, seeing the balance, thinking it was a system error, refreshing, calling the customer service number, listening to the hold music. Refreshing again until the $6.43 became the complete truth. Russell sent a message at 8:24. She got in the car. She is driving fast. I sent a message to Eleanor Patterson. She replied in less than a minute. I was expecting it. Everything is in order. Call me after 10. Natalie went straight to look for a lawyer. She found attorney Carlton Beaumont, a guy with an office on a main avenue who had a reputation for being aggressive and a website that looked like it was made in 2008. 3.5 stars on Google. She was at his office at 9:15. I know this because Jillian, my daughter who had been on my side since I explained everything to her 3 weeks earlier, passed through the area on her way to work and recognized her mother's truck in the parking lot. Jillian sent me a message. Mom already has a lawyer. She moved fast. I replied, so do I. What Mr. Beaumont was going to find when he started investigating was a desert landscape. The original entity of Whitaker Property Management, the one that had Natalie's name, still existed, legally flawless, with 2 residual clients, a warehouse on a downtown side street full of old filing cabinets, and an operating account with $400. The $400 was another private joke. In Bloomington, with $400, you eat well for 1 day. After that, you do not. The real entity, the one with the 26 apartments, the 3 commercial spaces, the active contracts, The income streams that generated enough to live without worries, that one did not have Natalie's name on it. It never did, because the migration was done 13 months before any legal action, documented as a legitimate business decision, with Eleanor's counsel, without a single irregularity. Natalie had been a partner in an empty shell for over a year. She came home every night, slept in the same bed as me, ate the meatloaf I bought, used the gas I paid for, and not once did it occur to her to check the numbers of what was supposedly her business too. Because she was too busy with Vincent Parker and his dental clinics, and his black Ford F-150 and his hotel soap. Eleanor called me at 10:03. She hired Beaumont, she said without preamble. He will go for the business first. It is the logical step. And what is he going to find? $400 and a warehouse with old cabinets. The warehouse does not have mice. It is a figure of speech, Harlan. I am literal. It is a flaw. Eleanor almost smiled. Almost. He is also going to argue dissipation of assets. That you moved money to leave her with nothing. He can try to prove it. He can argue it. Proving it is a whole other story. Every transfer has documentary support. Every restructuring has commercial justification. Your paper trail is, she paused, conservative. I am a stonemason. We measure twice. I know. That is why you are my favorite client. Russell found me at the motel that afternoon. He arrived with a bag of pulled pork from a stall on the Bedford Highway that he swore were the best in the state. And he was probably right, because Russell does not exaggerate about food. He sat on the edge of the bed while I ate at the small table by the window. The room smelled of industrial detergent and something the air conditioning could not quite hide. Cheryl told me not to bring you beer, Russell said. She says right now you do not need alcohol, you need protein. Cheryl is right, she always is. That is why I have been married for 44 years. We ate in silence for a while. Russell is the kind of person you can be quiet with without the silence becoming uncomfortable. In construction you learn that. To be next to someone for entire hours without speaking, communicating only with gestures and the sound of tools. Natalie already called her sister Felicia, Russell said suddenly. Felicia told her close friend Irene. Irene told Cheryl this morning, asking if we knew where you were. What did Cheryl tell them? That she did not know anything. That maybe you were out checking some properties outside the city. Good answer. It was her idea. Russell unwrapped another piece of meat. The version going around is that you had some kind of nervous breakdown, that you left the house in the early hours of the morning for no reason, and that Natalie is very worried about your mental health. I kept chewing for a moment. Outside, through the motel window, a gardener was trimming the parking lot hedges with manual shears, not an electric trimmer, with shears, as if he had all the time in the world. There is something comforting about watching someone do manual labor calmly. Let her tell her story, I said. Stories have continuations. Russell nodded slowly and said nothing more on the subject. We finished the pulled pork. He left at 2 in the afternoon. I stayed in the room for a while looking at the parking lot, thinking about everything and nothing at the same time. That is how it feels when a decision you made months ago finally goes into motion. It does not feel like victory or defeat. It feels like gravity, like something that no longer depends on you. There was something neither Eleanor nor I anticipated, something that came down a path I did not build, and that changed the dimensions of the matter irreversibly. The following Thursday, I was in room 17 of the Bedford Motel eating some eggs with peppers from a street stall and looking at my phone when a call came in from an Indianapolis number I did not recognize. Mr. Whitaker, a young, professional voice said. My name is Dana Reynolds. I am a journalist for the business section of the Indianapolis Star. I am investigating financial irregularities in a chain of dental clinics in Bloomington, specifically payments to a supplier named VPS Dental Consulting. I understand you might have relevant information. I stared out the window. Outside, a man with a hat was selling homemade ice cream on the sidewalk. He shouted, "Ice cream cones," with the regularity of a metronome. Life kept functioning out there, as if nothing were happening in here. I had not contacted anyone at the Indianapolis Star. I had not contacted any journalist, which meant someone else had, and the list of people who knew about VPS Dental Consulting was extremely short. Me, Eleanor, Patrick Ledbetter, Russell for the past week, and Vincent Parker. The man who had been involved with my wife for 4.5 years had decided that when the ship started to sink, he was not going down with it. He threw her overboard first, and called the newspaper on his way to the lifeboat. There is a kind of justice that the universe delivers without you asking for it, and that you could not have planned better even if you tried. I have learned to recognize that justice and get out of its way. Ms. Reynolds, I said, I think we should meet. We met the next day at a cafe in Nashville, right on the town square. I chose Nashville because it was my territory. 15 minutes from the motel, an hour from Bloomington, far from any familiar eyes. Dana Reynolds was younger than her voice suggested. Maybe 32. Hair tied back, a notebook, the quick gaze of someone who makes a living reading people in a few seconds. Before she spoke, I told her, I need to know who sent you my way. I protect my sources. I am not asking for a name. I am asking for a category. Pause. Someone with direct knowledge of the clinic's supplier payment structure. Vincent. Confirmed. The perfumed coward throwing my wife overboard. I placed the manila envelope with Patrick Ledbetter's investigation on the table. I want to be clear, I am not giving you this for personal reasons. I am giving it because $45,000 in fake invoices went through a business that carries my last name, and I will not have my name associated with misconduct. Dana opened the envelope, read for 5 minutes without saying a word, then looked at me. Does your wife know you have this? My wife has not known where I am for 5 days. And the business restructuring, 13 months ago, documented, legal. She nodded slowly, closed the envelope. I am going to need certified copies. Eleanor Patterson's office will have them tomorrow before noon. Dana blinked. You already called your lawyer. Ms. Reynolds, I called my lawyer 13 months ago. The article came out the following Monday. I read it sitting on the motel bench with a coffee from the corner store. The piece was professional. The Indianapolis Star does not exaggerate, but it does not hold anything back either. It detailed the entire VPS dental consulting scheme. Invoices for non-existent services, transfers to a company with no employees, no office, and no verifiable tax address. It mentioned Vincent Parker's dental clinics by name. And in the 5th paragraph, with that surgical precision that good journalists have, it mentioned the operations manager who administered the payments on the side of Whitaker Property Management, Natalie Whitaker, full name in the Indianapolis Star. I read that paragraph 3 times. Then I finished my coffee, got dressed, and called Russell. Did you see it? He said before I could speak. Yes. Cheryl already sent the link to her close friend Phyllis. Phyllis sent it to half the neighborhood. By 9 the whole of Bloomington will know. Good. Russell's voice dropped a tone. Beaumont quit the case yesterday afternoon. We found out through his office secretary, who is the cousin of a buddy of Cheryl's. He said it was due to an irreconcilable conflict of interest. It made sense. Beaumont was getting paid to fight for a business that the Indianapolis Star had just reported his client was involved in misconduct with. The same business that had been restructured out of her reach 13 months ago. It was not a difficult case. It was an impossible case with legal exposure included. Even a 3.5-star lawyer knows when to let go. She is without a lawyer, Russell said. Without an account, without a business, and with her name in the newspaper. What does she do now? That is no longer my problem. The divorce came through 11 weeks later, on a gray February morning, at the county courthouse in the downtown area that smelled of wet marble floors and old stationery. Natalie hired another lawyer, Michelle Talbot, a young and competent woman who did what she could with a case that had nothing left to argue. The house was sold in 45 days. After paying off the mortgage and splitting the remainder, Natalie was left with a little over $60,000 and a warehouse on a downtown side street, with filing cabinets no one was ever going to open. She kept the warehouse. I kept everything else. Vincent Parker reached a settlement with the auditors who were already building their own file on him even before Dana Reynolds called me. He resigned in December. The last I heard of him, he was selling insurance in a beach town in Florida. Good weather for a man running away from his own reputation. The county prosecutor's office opened an investigation file on the VPS dental consulting payments in March. Eleanor told me not to expect quick movement. These things take time. But the file existed. It had Natalie's name on it, and files, in my experience, have a habit of staying open. Derek called me the week of the divorce. He told me his mother had asked him to talk to me, to try to make me reconsider. Derek is 31 years old and has his paternal grandfather's temperance. Dad, are you calm? I am at peace. Do you need anything? For you to visit me when you can and bring me some of the good local pastries. Done. Jillian did not need me to explain anything. She saw the papers, understood the situation, and hugged me without saying a word. Her daughter, my granddaughter, asked me why I did not live in the Oakwood Drive house anymore. I told her Grandpa Harlan moved to a new apartment because he wanted to be closer to the ice cream. She accepted that explanation with the wisdom of a 4-year-old, which is the age where simple answers still work. I moved to an apartment on Walnut Street in downtown Bloomington. 3rd floor, large windows overlooking the historic courthouse towers. In the mornings, a light comes in that makes the Indiana limestone of the buildings across the street glow as if it were lit from within. It is the same stone I carved for 30 years. Now I see it from the window while I eat breakfast, and there is something in that which feels a lot like justice. My mother's photo hangs on the dining room wall. Ruth looks at me with her blue shawl and her expression of a woman who always knew exactly what she was worth. Sometimes I talk to her, I tell her how my day went, what I ate, if my back hurts, the small questions, the ones that mean everything. One morning in March, weeks after everything ended, I drove back to Oakwood Drive. I did not go into the house. The new owners had already changed the door and put up some planters I would not have chosen. I parked at the end of the street. I watched the neighborhood do what neighborhoods do at 10 in the morning. A lady with grocery bags from Kroger, a DoorDash delivery guy on a bicycle, the neighbor's dog lying on the sidewalk as if the world belonged to him. I thought about 32 years, about the good parts, because there were some, about the kitchen we remodeled together in 2013 and argued over for 3 weeks, about the 2 children we raised in that house who turned out to be better people than either of us deserved, about the Indiana limestone bench in the backyard, which weighs 330 pounds and will probably still be there when the house is gone. I did not feel triumphant. I want to be honest. What I felt was something quieter than triumph. The specific tranquility of a man who saw something coming, prepared himself with everything he had, and did not blink when the time came. 59 years old. Still standing. I started the pickup truck. I pulled out of Oakwood Drive and did not look in the rearview mirror. I measured twice. I was ready for the cut. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it. Not leaving, but taking so long. For years without looking at the accounts. For years trusting that what I built was safe just because the person taking care of it shared my last name. Comment. This story really stayed with me, and I hope it gave you something to think about, too. One thing I keep coming back to is how important it is to value your own self-worth. Learning to set clear boundaries can save us so much pain down the road. I admire people who can stay calm and handle difficult situations with dignity rather than chaos. Taking responsibility for our own happiness and future is one of the greatest acts of self-love. Choosing peace over drama is a skill worth developing. Healing takes time, but it starts with small, brave decisions. Always remember to be kind to yourself, even when others aren't. If you're going through something challenging, know that you deserve better days ahead. I'm really rooting for you and the peaceful life you're building. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.